bleed green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. Ready? This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go!
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50-plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Let's go! Go!
Oh, it's a tough morning here in the Delaware Valley, the day after Super Bowl 57, in which the Philadelphia Eagles came up just short in losing to the Kansas City Chiefs. You got your Mac and Mac guys, John McMullen and Jody McDonald, here for the next 2 hours to go over why the Eagles are not going to be having a parade later this week. You're truly in my comfortable climes. Jay McMullen in his hotel room out there in Arizona. Looks like he got about 25 minutes sleep. Am I overestimating how much sleep you got, McMullen?
I think I got a solid 90 minutes in, or something like that. Yeah. So I'm struggling like everyone.
Not the way to go into a day after the Eagles lose the way that they did. In one of the most exciting Super Bowls I've ever seen, and I've seen basically all of them. I don't remember 1 and 2. I barely remember. I surely remember 3 when the Jets won, but the other 54-3, I certainly remember everything about them. And this will go down as one of the best Super Bowls of all time. It's just, unfortunately for the Eagles and their fans, that they're on the short end of this one. Before we start to pick it apart, would you agree that this is one of the best Super Bowls ever?
Oh, yeah, very, 38-35. People love scoring. They got that. They got 2 explosive offenses. We talked all year about, MVPs and who was MVP, and both quarterbacks showed up and played like MVPs and had tremendous games. So you had that. Tremendous awareness by Kansas City late. Eagles fans aren't going to like that, but winning the game essentially with 8 seconds left and doing what they were able to do. Something about Arizona. The Malcolm Butler Super Bowl was here the last time. David Tyree helmet catch, and now you have the 38-35 Super Bowl. So yeah, it was very entertaining. Anybody's going to complain about the nature of these 2 teams. They were, they both belonged in this game, and they both proved it.
They did. They put on a show, and it comes down to a last-second field goal that decides it. Just a quick shot at Arizona. That field was a stone-cold mess and a shame. Now, as everyone said,
a 2-hour show on the NFL and logistics in this Super Bowl. They should be ashamed of themselves. But to the Eagles' credit, obviously the field was an issue. Jason Kelce said it. Sam Reddick said it was the worst field he's ever played on his entire life, which is, amazing for the Super Bowl. But they both teams were on the same field. So right. Both teams had the same, positives and negatives. So nobody was using that as a crutch. But the NFL should be ashamed of themselves for not doing a better job.
They've had 3 amazing Super Bowls here, but that game was marred by the fact that the field just flat out was a mess. And you're right, it played the same for both teams. So it's not the reason that the Eagles lost the game, but it made it a lesser Super Bowl, which is too bad because it was such a superior Super Bowl. And it was one that the Eagles had a 10-point lead at half, and they had to get 2 big defensive stops. The first at the very beginning of the second half. That didn't happen. Patrick Mahomes limped out of the locker room. We saw him limp into it and then come out and look perfectly fine despite that high ankle sprain. That a nice tackle by TJ Edwards, fair tackle, hard tackle, had him limping off the field to end the first half. He comes right out onto the field to start the second half and marches him right down the field. The Eagles defense needed a stop there, or at least to hold them to a field goal. They couldn't do that. And then the biggest drive after the Eagles tie it with the Jalen Hurts running touchdown, and he just power will into the end zone for the 2-point conversion to get it even when they were down 8. They needed another big stop, and they didn't get it. We're going to talk about special teams today. We're going to talk about an unforced error by Jalen Hurts, the only major mistake he made all game, and surely those were big factors in the game. Eagles couldn't get a big stop when they needed it, John. End of the start of the second half, and in the fourth quarter when the Eagles got the game tied, they just couldn't stop Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs offense.
Nope. I go back to Super Bowl 52 and games have personalities. It's always stuck with me. And this was another one. This was a shootout. I said it when it was 7-7. I said, welcome to the shootout. This was a shootout. And there was going to be some points scored in this game. And, back in Super Bowl 52, the Eagles got the stop. They got to play. Brandon Graham, strip sack. If that happens, they win the game this time. Didn't happen. They didn't get the stop. They didn't get the big play. They didn't get off the field. And it was, it's disappointing. I mean, obviously, the defense is going to take a lot of hits today, and they should. I mean, the Eagles should have won this Super Bowl. They dominated the first half. The Chiefs were lucky to be within 10 points. Game should have been over. And they let them right back in the game. They had 3 straight, they had 4 possessions in the second half. Touchdown, 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 field goal. And the only reason that wasn't a touchdown is because Jerick McKinnon was savvy enough to understand the game situation and get down. Otherwise, he was walking into the end zone. And I think maybe the Eagles were allowing him to walk in the end zone, and he was too smart. And he essentially ended the game by being savvy. And would Miles Sanders have done the same thing? I don't know. He's had that history of going out and when the Eagles are trying to run out the clock. So that you have to give Kansas City a lot of credit as well. But touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. And again, field goal to end the game. That's not good enough. And you mentioned special teams. We've been waiting all year for the shoe to drop, and here it came with a 65-yard Kadarius Toney punt return. Nick Sirianni made sure to mention, there was the fumble, touchdown, and essentially the 65-yard punt return. You can't blame that on the defense. That's extremely short field, but defense didn't play well, especially in the second half.
You used the word there, and you've used it a lot, and I agree with it. Savvy, that the Eagles have savvy cornerbacks, 2 of the more savvy cornerbacks in the National Football League. Well, those savvy cornerbacks, I know for a fact that Slay got burnt on the one. I'm not exactly sure who got beat on the second touchdown, but the Chiefs not only scored touchdowns, they scored walking touchdowns.
Yeah.
I
was looking, it was tough for you guys. You probably had a better angle than me. I don't know to give Andy Reid credit, but these guys were wide open. I don't know what was going on, but I know I talked about you. I pressed this team, communication in that back 7 was going to be a big thing because they were going to play a lot of zone. And you got guys wide open in the red zone for easy touchdowns. Yeah, that was not good. That was not good at all, Jody.
All right. On the Kadarius Toney touchdown, not his 65-yard punt, on the touchdown, That's just a mistake by Darius Slay. He is looking to pass him along as he goes. It's man to man, so he's first starting to look like he's going to have to go around the entire defensive line, and then Tony just dead stops, and Slay is left in no man's land, and he just walks into the end zone. The second one, I don't even know who Sky Moore's responsibility was, because he too came in motion, stopped, went back the other way, and there was no one. No one. You couldn't even see anybody on the TV screen as to who was supposed to be covering him on the play. That is just a total breakdown and a walk-in touchdown. You can make some excuses for Gannon's defense. A short field on the one. They didn't give up the 7 points on the Jalen Hurts unforced error. But not only did they give up 24 points, 14 of them were the easiest points I've ever seen in my life on short passes. That's on.
I always said, with this defense, when you blow coverages, it looks bad, and you saw it looks bad. The irony of all ironies, we've been talking about this all year. For whatever reason, that narrative started that Vic Fangio was a consultant for this team, and I kept saying, no, he's not. No, he's not. No matter how many times you see it, read it, he's not. He's not. He's not. By the way, everyone can send their apologies to me for yelling at me, because he's not signing a 2-week contract. If he was under contract to be a consultant, he wasn't a consultant, and for some bizarre reason, the Eagles brought him in for 2 weeks before the Super Bowl. Not that there's anything. I don't think it helped. I don't think it hindered. I just don't understand, other than I gave Jeffrey Lurie credit for, that's an owner who's willing to give his staff anything to try to help them succeed. But I don't know how it helps them succeed. But this scheme in general, I bring up Vic because of the scheme. When you don't communicate, it can get ugly. And you see it all across the league. And I would bring it up during the season. Teams, it was ugly. And the same thing with the Eagles. They just happen to do it better than anybody else this season. But at times it bit them. And when you play that and you don't communicate, it's going to look ugly at times.
And, oh, by the way, on those 2 touchdowns that were miscommunications and just look stone cold ugly, here's the reason why I'm going to give Gannon a bit of a hard time today. And you and I were texting prior to the game, and you were telling me, looks like Steichen's gone. Gannon could be gone too. The entire staff is going out the door after this game. Steichen may still well get the cult job. I would say Gannon's defense's performance yesterday probably hurt his chances in Arizona, but we got to let that play out. Here's my other issue with the Eagles. There's a couple issues with the Eagles defense. All week long, we talked about the 70 sacks, the Philadelphia third most sacks in the history of the National Football League. Unbelievable that they get there with only 4. Jonathan Gannon doesn't have to blitz. This is one of the greatest defensive lines we've ever seen. 0 sacks. And truth be told, and Johnny Mack, this is your ballywick, they didn't even get pressure. Mahomes got rid of the football real quick. Andy Reid had the well-played, well-designed plays. The guys got open as fast as they did. They didn't even get pressure on him. Forget about getting a sack. And when they did get pressure, Mahomes went by them and turned the ball up the field with his gimpy ankle and made a couple of big plays with his legs. What the hell happened to the best defensive line in the National Football League?
Well, a couple things I said. Number one, people didn't give enough. Well, some people in Philadelphia didn't give enough credit to the Kansas City offensive line, which is really good in its own right.
All we heard was Andrew Wiley, weak link. Hassan Reddick's going to eat all day long. And
Andrew Wiley
left
was
those other 4 guys out of the conversation.
And then you go into the Andy Reid preparation aspect of it, because he knew Andrew Wiley was going to be up against it, and he did give him more help than I certainly expected. And there was always a person on Wiley's side pretty much chipping, doing whatever, trying to slow Hassan Reddick down. But it was interesting in the first half, and you and I get in this discussion all the time, and this is a perfect example, all right? like nobody in the history of the world was getting a lot of sacks. I mean, they were getting the football out. That was the game plan. They were concerned about the Eagles' pass rush. So Patrick Mahomes, was getting the football out. And that's why I always say, the Eagles went through that stretch of big sack games, and you looked at the quarterbacks and the Ryan Tannehills of the world, the Daniel Jones of the world. Again and again, they happen to go through the stretch with quarterbacks willing to hold on to the football, willing to give you. Now, the Eagles were doing a tremendous job pass rushing, but I would always bring up Tom Brady. All right, it doesn't matter who you are. You can be the fearsome foursome, the steel curtain, the purple people eaters, the 70 sack Eagles. Doesn't matter who you are. You're not sacking Tom Brady a lot. You're not. He's getting the football out. He's getting it out on time. So there are certain quarterbacks who aren't going to allow you to sack the quarterback. The problem was the first half, they got some pressure. Second half, they got no pressure, zero. And that's an issue. You mentioned Reddick. He had a couple good pass rushes in the first half. He and Sweat almost got him with that little push pass. He tried to, unconventional. TJ Edwards almost intercepted it. The Kansas City receiver, I forget who was almost caught it as well. It was like a bang, bang play. But that was tremendous pressure. A couple times they had Mahomes uncomfortable in the first half. Second half was just a disgraceful defensive performance. There's no other way to frame it. As good as Kansas City is, and they are good. I mean, we're talking about first ballot Hall of Fame coach, best player in the game at playing quarterback. The Eagles dominated the first half of this game. They dominated. The score, Kansas City was happy to be within 10. The score wasn't indicative. I think the yards was 270 to 120 something. The time of possession, everything was going the Eagles' way to the point you're saying, oh, this might be a coronation in the second half. And it didn't turn out to be. We went from the coin toss, Jody. We talk too much about the coin toss. Kansas City won the coin toss. Here we go. Defer. Eagles go right down the field. Score again. 3 for 3. They were 14-3 in coin tosses, 0-3 in the postseason. They lost every single coin toss. Every team deferred. Touchdown, touchdown, touchdown for the Eagles. And then when you went to the why you do that, the end of the second half, the end of the second quarter, Kansas City was a disaster. That's when Mahomes got hurt. The Eagles got the ball back. They had the chance. They only got a field goal. They had a chance to punch it in. They didn't look bad for Kansas City. And they came out. They did get the football in the second half. They did score. They did settle things down. Maybe it was Rihanna. Maybe it was the extra time in the halftime show. I asked Nick about that. They were not the same team in the second half. Something happened.
The coin toss, and not the fact that it came up tails, but the fact that the Chiefs won and deferred and decided to give it to the Eagles, was one of the few player prop bets that I hit, because I had the Eagles scoring first. And you got to get the ball first and score first. And they did just that. Otherwise, too much. I did think it was going to be an over, but I had the Eagles winning the game in most of my parlay plays. So not a successful day of wagering, not a successful day for the Eagles. All right, so we're all ticked off today. We're all disappointed today. We're all beside ourselves because the Eagles, and I choose my words very carefully here, they could have won that game. I will not say they should have won that game. I think that's dismissive and disrespectful to the Kansas City Chiefs, who did a hell of a job in rallying, getting the job done, and dominating the second half the way the Eagles dominated in the first half. So I will just say they could have won the game, which anytime you could have won a game and you don't, it is painful and it is difficult. but there's going to be at some point, and if it's not for you out there streaming with us in today, or later this week, or even next week, you can hold on to your Madden disappointment for as long as you think necessary. At some point, you got to take a step back. And you got to look at the big picture, and you got to look at what the season was. This was a heck of a season for the Philadelphia Eagles on a lot of different fronts. But first things first, let's start with the quarterback. Yes, I know Jalen Hurts dropped the football. Changing hands, unforced error. I know it's a term usually used in tennis, but it certainly fits here. No player had his hand on him before the ball came out, was scooped up in for a touchdown. It's a big play in the game, and that's on Jalen. But other than that, man, did he show out. He was step for step, play for play, in some ways better than Patrick Mahomes, who is the MVP, who's been there, done that, who is following the footsteps of Brady, a guy you're going to be talking about if he decides to play 20 years, is actually challenging him for the greatest of all time. Johnny Mac, that was a show that Jalen Hurts put on yesterday.
Oh, he was tremendous, and it's a shame that they didn't win the game, because you're gonna, at least some. I think it's fewer and fewer, but you're still gonna have whatever you want to call them, the haters of the world. He was tremendous. I mean, I think he played better than Patrick Mahomes. I do. I think on that individual. I mean, one thing about Mahomes, I'm not criticizing Mahomes at all, but I just mentioned the way Kansas City was playing. I think his longest pass play was 22 yards, Jody. I mean, he only had 182 yards passing. One of the most disappointing aspects of this game for the Eagles, I think, defensively, we haven't even got to. We will. Got plenty of time. Stopping the run. I mean, Kansas City was the much better running team. Miles Sanders got banged up early, was a non-factor, played a very poor game. Jalen Hurts carried this team offensively. Now, the receivers were good. Devontae was tremendous. AJ was tremendous. Dallas Goedert was great. Some of his throws to Dallas Goedert were just tight window, perfect throws. And then the running aspect, he set a new record for rushing yards by a quarterback. He had 3 touchdowns. You mentioned a 2-point conversion, just carried, putting the team on his back. I said, we had talked, and I never understood this mentality, but people had it. And now it becomes a footnote. If the Eagles win the game, that drive, when they were down 35-27, what doesn't that answer? I mean, that it looked desperate. And you're saying the Eagles aren't used to this. Jalen can't do this. Bang, bang, bang. They go down the field.
Yep.
That looked like, from a momentum standpoint, because remember, you had the Kadarius Toney punt return, and then you're like, oof. And they're down 8 points. They score the touchdown, and it's getting late. And here they come right down the field. He gets the big play to DeMonte, and all of a sudden the 2-point conversion. What more do you need to see? Jeffrey Lurie said it earlier in the week before the game. There's nothing left to see. He proved it again. He was the best player on the field in the Super Bowl, happened to be on the losing team. That would be a legendary drive in Philadelphia if the Eagles came back and won that football game. Now it's a footnote, much like the season. I said on the postgame show, this is still the best Eagles team of the modern era. It's never going to be viewed as that. It still is. You got to win. You got to win.
I was going to say, how can it be but not be viewed that way?
Because it's easy. I say it all the time. The best Patriots team of the Tom Brady era didn't win. So they're not regarded, but that was the best team. That was the best group. The best team doesn't always win. I mean, people don't want to, the best Phillies team for local people Ryan Howard, Jimmy Rollins, Chase Utley, that group, they won one World Series. They had a 3-year run where they were the best team in baseball. The worst of those 3 teams is the one that won. It happens all the time in sports, Jody. The 2 Eli Manning Super Bowl wins, by no means were the New York Giants the best team in football. They made nice runs. They played well at big spots. They played well on the big stage. The best team doesn't always win. You know that.
No, John, I don't know that. You and I have different definitions. You can look up to a point and then go, oh, Super Bowl, 1 game, World Series, 1 game. No, the magnitude rises, and you have to win that game if you want to be considered all-time great.
I understand, and more as we've gone on, more people have the Ricky Bobby rules, and I think, Philadelphia, I'm writing about that today. Philadelphia is like ground zero of that, right? Because of the process. Either win or you're nothing. Either win or you're nothing. Either win or you're nothing. I don't like the way sports has gone in that direction, but that's the reality. I'm saying it's the reality. This team is now a footnote, and that's the most disappointing. That's more disappointing, I would think. I can't speak. Obviously, fans want to win the game, and I'm sure they'll look at it differently. To me, that's the more disappointing part of this, because this ain't happening again. This ain't happening again. This group, this team, this dominance, they might go on and win a Super Bowl, but they might be 11-6. They're not going to be 14-1 with the starting quarterback too often. They're going to lose both of their coordinators. They're going to lose a bunch of players. They lost an opportunity that is rare, and that to me is the most disappointing part, because they were the better team. And I know you're going to disagree with me. You're saying the better team didn't win yesterday. They lost a big game. They lost. Kansas City deserves it. If you play this game 100 times, Eagles, I'm not saying they're going to win it 98. They're probably going to win it 57, 58 times. They're a better team. They didn't finish the deal. They deserve all the criticism. And they had a tremendous opportunity, and they didn't take advantage of it.
Yeah, I'm between they become a footnote because they lost and they were the better team. They disregard the actual outcome of the game, just judge it up to prior to the game being played and then crown a champion. It doesn't work that way. You have to finish it off. You have to win that last game, and they didn't. So that's why Kansas City is going to get a chance to get a parade, and they got the Lombardi trophy. And whether the Eagles were a 1.5 favorite, which isn't a whole hell of a lot, but they were the favorite coming into the game. You can make the argument that they had a better season up until that point. You lose the final game, and that's enough to move the needle over to Kansas City side. So they were the better team for the year.
I'm not discounting Kansas City by any stretch. They played, they deserved to win the game. But I'm saying the mentality of, we see, just because it's the championship game, we see upsets every week in the NFL. Every week in the NFL. Nobody is saying, whomever beat Kansas City on week 8, nobody's going to say they're better than Kansas City. Kansas City got upset on a certain week, but because it's the final game, because it's the 2 best teams, because it's where it is, people say, no, that's the better team because they beat a certain team on a certain day. That's not necessarily the case. Upsets happen all the time in sports. And, I brought up the Phillies. It happens less in sports where you have series. If you have a best of 7 series and you're the better team, you should win. Doesn't always happen, but you should win. You have a better chance to win. There's less of a chance for an anomaly because you're playing again and again and again. In one-offs, I mean, the NCAA tournament's the best example of that. I mean, one-offs, anything can happen. And the disappointing part is they dominated the first half so much, and they couldn't finish the deal. They couldn't finish the deal. That's what I'm saying. They deserve all the criticism in the world. They're probably sick to their stomach because they know what opportunity they had, and they didn't take advantage of it.
Well, I understand the point you're trying to make. I just don't think it's applicable in this situation. Both teams came in with the exact same record. Both teams came in with the exact same number of points scored. You couldn't have had two more evenly matched teams, and one won and one lost. So the better team won. That's it. You're right. Week 6, there's an upset, and a team who's 13-point underdog to beat the Kansas City Chiefs or the Commanders who beat the Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah, that's a surprise. That's an upset. This wasn't an upset. These were two very evenly matched teams, and over the course of 60 minutes, the Chiefs made more plays. The Eagles made much more plays in the first half. Chiefs made more plays in the second half. You put it all together, 60 minutes, one team ended up with 3 more points. That makes them the best team.
Well, and believe me, 99% of the people are going to agree with you, Jody. I'm well aware of that. And that's why I say nobody will look at this team any longer and say, this is the best Eagles team in the modern era. Nobody will look at it that way. I still look at it that way. I saw both of those teams from day one through the Super Bowl. And that's how, whether it's the Brandon Graham strip sack, or we'll use Arizona's history in the Super Bowl, or Malcolm Butler's interception, or David Tyree's helmet catch. That's what you're talking about. You're talking about the slimmest margin of one play making the difference in somebody winning or somebody losing. And I just can't go all in. Oh, they won the game. They're the better team. The better team doesn't always win. I mean, to me, it's self-evident. It happens all the time. All the time. I mean, these teams were very close. You're very right. This is not a major upset, but I'm not trying to say that. We'll go back to the 16-0 Patriots again. That was a major upset. Like, I mean, you can scream from the hills. There is no stinking way the New York Giants were better than the New England Patriots that year. They were better on that day, though. And that's all I'm trying to say.
Understood. But and I get your whole argument and line of thinking. I just don't think it's applicable in this situation. And apparently, although I'm not Ricky Bobby, I'm not going there. This Eagle team needed to finish the deal the same way the Eagle team finished the deal 5 years ago. So all the conversations we had leading up to who's better, the team for 5 years ago or this team, you needed to wait till the play was over to give you a review of it. And that included the final game against an evenly matched Kansas City Chiefs team. And they came up short. So for me,
Super Bowl team, to me is the most disappointing part, because this was the opportunity. This was the best team they've had in, since 1960. This was, franchise record for wins. Throw out the 2 Gardner Minshew games, 70 sacks. When is that going to happen again? If people think this is coming, if people think this is the new normal, oh, they're going to go 14-0. They're going to get 70 sacks. It doesn't matter who they bring in. They're going to have this. They're going to have that. Career years all over the place, Jody. It's not going to happen again. So that's what I'm saying. As disappointing as the loss is, to throw away, that's probably too harsh of a word, but to not cash in on this opportunity, oof.
Going to be painful. Tough. You are correct. But one last analogy, we'll get our first break in. I'm a horse racing guy. and did not have a good day on Saturday. It was not a good weekend for the MacMan. All my player props in the Super Bowl came up short because I had the Eagles winning the game, and I couldn't pick a winner. Couldn't pick my nose on Saturday. It's a 6 furlong race. It's a mile race. It's a mile and a half race, whatever it is. They don't judge the winner until they come past the finish line. You can run the greatest race of all time up until the last 20 yards. And if another horse gets his nose in front of you, guess what? You go to the window with your ticket. You say, please pay me. I handicapped that race perfectly. They run it through the machine and they go, loser. It is decided at the finish line, not before, not throughout, not, oh my God, opened up 8 links on the backstretch and ran the fastest half mile in the history. No, all of that goes by the boards if you don't get your nose in front of the wire.
I know, Jody. I know. It's only gotten worse. And I always, one, because it's a tremendously funny movie, but I always get a kick out of it. Because it was actually Ricky's dad in the movie who said, if you're not first, you're last. And in the movie, it stuck with young Ricky Bobby. And then later in the movie, everyone forgets, he told him, son, I was drunk. You can finish first, second, third, fourth. The people forget that part of it. But yeah, and I think Philadelphia, in a lot of ways, is ground zero because of what happened with Sam Hinkie. And even Sixers fans to this day, Jody, from being on WIP talking to Cliff, they moved the goalposts. But remember, at the time, it was about championships. That's all that matters.
Right.
You got to be in a position to win a champion. Now that it didn't work and they don't want to admit they're wrong, now they go back and say, well, we're relevant, and all these other discussions come into the equation. Wasn't where you said at the beginning.
No.
You just want to shine up that turd, so to speak, and make yourself look better. I get it. That's where everybody. That's where a lot of people are.
This Eagles season is far from a turd. We both agree on that. It was a great season. It was a phenomenal season. It's one that we believe they can build on. It's one that they let a serious chance slip out of their hands. And forever, people will be disappointed because of the outcome of yesterday's game. But if we're just talking about comparing it to other championship teams, it comes up small, John.
That's where, again, that's where the loss, from my perspective, you said that they can build on this. That's my point. I don't think they can build on this. They're coming the other way. That's my point. They're coming the other way. They're losing coordinators. They're losing assistant coaches. They're losing players. They're not building on anything. They built to where they've never been before, and they didn't cash in. That's the most disappointing.
But and we got to wait 12 months for this to happen, even if it happens. I would tell you that Kansas City won that game in part, not completely, but in part because of experience, because they had guys who had been there. The Eagles dominated the first half, and in the second half, when pressure gets ratcheted up a little bit and intensity gets ratcheted up a little bit, Kansas City was dominant in the second half. And I'll give credit to that in part to the fact that they'd been there and done that twice before. So now this Eagle group, although I agree with you, they'll take a hit on the coaching staff. They're going to take a hit in free agency, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. A key element of this team is staying put. And if they get back into the playoffs next year and make a Super Bowl run, they'll be better for it because they went there this year and lost. He's John McMullen. I'm Jordan McDonald. We are Mac and Mac. We did not schedule any guests for hour number one. I knew there was going to be so much for Mac and I to talk about. I didn't bother. Our buddy Paul Domowitch from the 33rd team and JAKIBSports.com is going to jump in hour number two. We're touching on why the Eagles lost, how the Eagles lost. Where do we go from here? Johnny Max, he's worried. Shane Steichen's out the door. Oh, my God, the nation is crumbling. Jonathan Gannon's going to get the Arizona job. No, he's not. After what happened in the second half. You want
to bet? I'll bet you on that one.
All right, you got a wager on that one. The game was played in Arizona, right? The Eagles' defense came apart in the second half in Arizona, right? And we're talking about the Arizona job. Is that the one we're talking about?
That's the one we're
All
talking
right.
about.
You think Gannon's going? I don't think so. I think he's staying right here, which might not be a bad thing because I still like Gannon. I still think he's very good, but his defense did come apart in the second half. So we'll continue the conversation right here on Birds 365.
Post-game show with Seth Joyner,
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn,
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney,
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
and Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Post-game, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
Why do millions of people every year from around the world visit Philly's Rocky statue?
You want to tell me the sky is burgundy with green stripes and yellow polka dots? I'll meet you on that. But you're never going to convince me Rocky is anything other than the pure greatness that it is. Never going to happen.
Join me, Paul Farber, for WHYY's The Statue. We're going on a journey to explore the biography of the Rocky statue. Find us wherever you get your podcasts.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Hi, I'm Jim Muehlbronner, Managing Partner at Del Val Insurance Group. Give us a call. We're a local, knowledgeable agency, not an 800 number. Go Birds!
Appreciate you screaming out in here on Birds 365. The Eagle postseason begins. We got to wait later than every other team except the Kansas City Chiefs to say the postseason is underway, but it is officially underway, and the Chiefs do get to celebrate for a week and have a parade that the Eagles do not. So we here on Birds 365 will start to look forward to 2023 and a season in which Johnny Mac is a little less optimistic than I am. But, we got months to go there. We do need to continue to recap what the hell happened yesterday. And I want to get your take on it. I know it's a weird thing, but I just need to hear it from you, a guy who was in the stadium as compared to me watching it on TV. I have not gone back and rewatched the game. Last night, after it was over and done with, I just tuned in to the post-game show, the little JAKIB Media post-game show, the NBC Sports Philly with our buddy Barrett on. So I didn't go back and watch the play. I went back and watched one play today, only one. And that was the very last play of the game, which was completely inconsequential after Butker kicked the field goal. I give credit. Who was it who fielded the kickoff, ran 11 yards, and got down and took a knee? Was that
Kenny Gainwell?
Was it Gainwell? That was actually a pretty smart play and a pretty nice play. So the Eagles were going to get the Hail Mary attempt at the end in which Kansas City blitzed brought two. Were there two pass rushes that they had offensive linemen just standing there with no one to block whatsoever? So Jalen waited, and then he finally threw it. He only threw it about 40 yards, Johnny Mac.
Yeah,
he was trying to get it up there in the air to hopefully get a tip pass. They decided to go tip pass at the end rather than lateral. We saw that once this year, and the Commanders scored a touchdown on it. They weren't very good.
They probably should have done that because people, I think people are going to start talking about, Jalen's got a strong, maybe that was the shoulder. We talked about him.
That was the question I was going to ask, because truth be told, that was a lame throw. It came up so short. I thought to myself, maybe I didn't see it. Did one of their very few pass rushers actually get a hand up on that or try he just couldn't get it more than 40 yards in the air.
I just think it was a bad throw. Maybe it came out bad. I don't think anybody asked him because, so it's always interesting to me with those desperation plays. Like, people focus on them. Like, the desperation play isn't the deal. It's how you got in the desperation. I mean, you're not going to do anything with that. Granted, I know there's been Hail Marys and, Minneapolis Miracle, blah, blah, blah. There's rare instances where you pull something out of your you-know-what and you win a game. But to me, it's, how did you get in that desperation? It's not that the desperation play looked so badly. But, it was a bad throw. So, I don't know whether it came out bad, whether his shoulders bothering him. He has those deep ball. He's had a tremendous season as a deep ball thrower overall. He had that one to A.J. Brown. Actually, Trent McDuffie was in a great position for that, but he just lost the football, couldn't track it. And A.J. Brown did a tremendous job. But he's been good, and it's like 45 yards, 45. It's almost like the Eagles crossed the 50 shot time, and he's been great at putting the ball in the bucket, especially in those range throws. But if you're looking, for the Brett Favre, John Elway throw, Jalen's probably not your guy, but is that a big deal? I don't know.
No, but it's something that Jalen can work on. He was very good last night. I really appreciated all the Eagles and how they handled the post-game stuff. It was as disappointing a loss as you can think of. And I thought they all handled it with class. And I give them all a lot of credit, certainly Jalen and Sirianni and Bradford. We'll get to him in just a second. But he does like to talk about growing from losses and learning and using it as motivation going forward. Jalen, work on being able to throw the ball 60 yards in the air. You're not going to use it much, but dedicate a little time to that because that ball came up well short. All right, James Bradbury. It was a weak call, John. It was a fair call. The pass and the holding penalty. You saw there was one replay that they showed. Don't know if you saw it in the press box, where you saw the jersey actually come away from the receiver, Tony's body. So you knew that Bradbury had grabbed a hold of the jersey on the play. In the post-game stuff, he admitted to grabbing the jersey on the play, and he said, I held, but I thought they were going to let us play. And how many times have you said it? I've said it. Everybody said it. They could call holding on every play in the National Football League, on the line, on DBs. There is a hold on every single play. If you went back, stopped every play and reviewed it for 10 minutes, which they did a couple times yesterday in the game. Some of those reviews took forever. If you played 9-hour NFL games and reviewed every single play afterwards to find every penalty, you could find a hold on every play. They don't call it that way. At that juncture of the game, so little effect on the play. The receiver got clear. It wasn't like he grabbed him and held him and pulled him off stride. It was a weak call, but it was a fair call. It was a call that the player who got flagged admitted that he had held on the play. I know that the Eagle fans who can't come to grips with or admit that the other team was as good as they were and earned the game and deserved the game will point to this and go, oh, we got screwed. Oh, the NFL is fixed. Oh, that no one wanted to see Philadelphia win. They hate us and we don't care. What were your thoughts on the penalty on the Bradford hold?
No issue with it. None at all. I mean, once we talked to Bradbury, and he said that, and he was even more, I was trying to pull up his exact quote. It was pulled the jersey. He called holding. That's what Bradbury said. I was hoping they would let it ride, but it was holding. So in other words, he wasn't saying, he was saying, I wish I got away with it, but he didn't get away. It was holding. And, the only thing I can say is if the same thing happened the other direction and the Eagles didn't get the call, Eagles fans would be incensed.
Absolutely.
And by the way, he held him twice on the play. He not only held his jersey, he also got his arm on his hip and sort of called. Now, Mahomes was under pressure, rare in the second half, and he was throwing that football away. So it was, from that perspective, if you start getting into the how much did it matter to the play, yeah, probably not a lot because he's throwing the football away. However, I don't know where the receiver would have been. Maybe he would have been open. Maybe he would have saw him. Maybe he wouldn't have been throwing it away. Plus, if you're an official, you don't have that.
Right. You don't have the ability to do that.
Aware view of what's going on. I say a lot, and I give Nick, because Nick said it, same thing. He wouldn't go down that route. James himself took responsibility. Class act. You know me well enough now to know I rarely complain about officiating because there's nothing you can do about it. They're human beings. They're going to make mistakes when they do make mistakes. And this was not a mistake. But generally when people complain about NFL officiating, generally, not always, generally, they're complaining about the rules. They're not really complaining about. That's what they're told to do. That was a penalty. I mean, that was a penalty. And the guy who it was called on admitted it was a penalty. Yep. So to me, the discussion stops there. But I know people are going to be upset by it.
And it ties into the way basketball is refereed for me. One thing that I absolutely positively can't stand is when there's a foul on a play and the referee, you can actually tell he waits to see if the ball goes in.
That's not
that if he's gonna let it go, if the guy makes the shot, but if the ball falls off the rim, he feels he's got to do something. He's got to blow his whistle and give him two because he saw the foul. He knows it's a foul. It's kind of a ticky-tack foul. He'd rather not call the foul, but he doesn't want to punish the guy on a play he's fouled. So he waits to see if the ball goes in, and then he blows his whistle, and you go, "What the hell?" Either he fouled him when he was shooting or he didn't foul him. Which is it? And he's trying to hedge the middle. That's why you couldn't blame this referee. He threw the flag. As soon as he saw the penalty, the flag came out of the pocket and he threw it. He couldn't wait to see that Mahomes was being pressured and he couldn't even get rid of the ball, that it really didn't take him out of the route that he was running. No, he saw the foul and he threw the flag, and that's the way you're supposed to do. If you're a referee, you're supposed to not only call what you see, but call what you see immediately. And the referee did see the hold, so unfortunately, it was a hold on the play. There will be Eagle fans that say the Super Bowl was stolen from them by that call for decades to come. But truth is, that was not the case. Is that going to be the last play that James Bradbury does or doesn't make for the Eagles? We touched on this in our first segment just a little bit, and we're only going to do it for the next several months. Eagles have a lot of free agents on the defensive side of the ball, one of which is James Bradbury. He had as good a year as he had that we think somebody's going to give him a boatload of money, and we're not sure the Eagles can be able to do that if they're going to get the Jalen Hurts extension done. Was that James Bradbury's last game for the Philadelphia Eagles?
If I were a betting man, I would say it is, because James understands that, he's got probably one opportunity here to get one more big-time contract because he played so well this season. And a lot of teams need corners. Arizona's going to need a corner. We're talking about Baker, that might be an interesting fit. But yeah, it's way too early to know what Howie's going to do. But and he and Jake Rosenberg, like I said, they're going to get an extension done with Jalen Hurts this offseason, but they're going to structure it to where it's not going to kick in, fully till a couple of years down the road. So they're going to be able to make. There's certain guys they're not going to be able to keep though, and Bradbury's among the most difficult. But they have so many issues, and we're going to talk about this a lot. They have a lot of. I mean, this one thing what I'm talking about, that was part of it. I brought up that on the post-game show when I'm talking about the opportunity. Everybody had a career year, and they're coming off a career year, and that's exactly it. What do you want? I mean, you want to get paid. Chauncey wants to get paid. Bradbury wants to get paid. Javon wants to get paid. Isaac Seumalo wants to get paid. Miles Sanders wants to get paid. Every single one of them came off their best season. Every single one of them. Career year, everywhere, up and down the lineup. I haven't even gotten to TJ Edwards and what are you going to do with Marcus Epps? Now there's, if you sign Chauncey, how do you go about it? Is Reed Blankenship the starting safety next year? If you sign Marcus, can you sign Chauncey? They got a lot of things to deal with. And there's certain people. We know TJ Edwards and Kai, both of them aren't going to be back. Presumably one is going to be back, and then is Nakobe Dean ready on the offensive line? Somebody's paying Isaac Seumalo. Do you want to pay? He's going to get Halapuli Bati money. He's probably gone. Is Cam Jurgens, if Jason Kelsey comes back, it's now trending towards him coming back. Is Cam Jurgens going to be able to step in and play guard? Are we going to have that another issue where the 15th heir apparent to Jason Kelsey, everybody, and then they end up playing a different position because he's so good? And then, as I mentioned, with Javon Hargrave, and forget about Linval Joseph, he's not coming back. And Dominican Sue, he's not coming back. Those guys came in ring shopping. What I'm talking about, this opportunity, this is what I'm talking about, Jody, along with the coaching staff. This group is now done. This group of this historic franchise record everywhere season is not coming back. Doesn't mean that experience you were talking about isn't going to help. You're still going to have the core group, and maybe you finish with 11 wins or 12 wins, but you're better equipped to get through the playoffs. Whatever, you might go about it a different way, but this group, the pages turned, and it's just a matter of how many are you going to lose?
And that happens every year in the National Football League. This is nothing new. Teams change. No one comes back en masse. It was a miracle last year that the entire Eagle coaching staff came back en masse. Not a change among the coaching staff. That was so irregular. It was unbelievable. This coaching staff is going to change. The players are going to change. It'll be a different team. I don't think the drop-off is going to be great. It's different. Different doesn't always equate to lesser. Sometimes different is actually better. I don't know that you can get better than 14-3 and a 3-point loss in the Super Bowl. There's only one way to go up, and the most important game is the final one, and who knows? Maybe they'll get back there. But this was a hell of a year for the Philadelphia Eagles. Certainly a disappointing finish, but yes, there are changes coming. All right, he's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We are the Mac guys on Birds 365. Come back, talk a little bit more about yesterday's game, and then we'll get a third voice into the opinion. Our buddy Paul Domowitch from 3013.com and his contribution for us on JAKIBSports.com. Damo will join us coming up about 20 minutes from now here on Birds 365.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Go for the beers, go for the cheers, go for the hit and the hits, go for the scene, go for the screens, go for the gallery, go for the win, go to Ocean.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Jeff D'Ambrosio doesn't need a special event to appreciate his customers. Jeff shows his appreciation to them every day of the year. Jeff makes sure to stock more new inventory than anyone and guarantees prices and payments that nobody can beat. There are so many reasons that thousands of customers know Jeff is the easy, friendly place to do business. More for their trades. No judgment zone for credit issues. The best, most reliable service department in the country. That's why I like Jeff, and I know you will too. Jeff will satisfy you every day. Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown, Owner Appreciation Event.
Post-game show with Seth Joyner.
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn.
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney.
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
And Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know how Philly is.
Post-game, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
Why do millions of people every year from around the world visit Philly's Rocky statue?
You want to tell me the sky is burgundy with green stripes and yellow polka dots? I'll meet you on that. But you're never going to convince me Rocky is anything other than the pure greatness that it is. Never going to happen.
Join me, Paul Farber, for WHYY's The Statue. We're going on a journey to explore the biography of the Rocky statue. Find us wherever you get your podcasts.
John McMullen up and at 'em early in Arizona this morning. Appreciate JM getting up as early as he did. He was working late, the post game in the locker room, and got up early for us to hop on board with us today before he gets back over here to the East Coast tomorrow. Yes, the Eagles got beat 38-35. Tremendously exciting game. Certain aspects of it made it one of the greatest Super Bowls ever. The only one that matters to most Eagle fans and streamers here on Birds 365 is the final score, and that did not go the Eagles' way. So, yes, it cannot be considered a great ending, but it was still a great football game. But we're trying to figure out a couple things that transpired over the course of the game and why they happened. J-Mac, maybe you got an answer on this one. And I don't want to beat up on Jonathan Gannon because you know I'm a fan. Maybe not as big as you, but a fan more than a detractor, and he's got his detractors out there. But the Kansas City Chiefs ran the football better than the Philadelphia Eagles. And if I had suggested that here on Birds 365 on Friday, that the Chiefs were going to outrun the Eagles, I would have been shouted down from the highest hilltops. What are you talking about? We're a better running. The Chiefs don't run. Mahomes throws the ball. We're going to get after Mahomes. We're going to sack Mahomes, and they can't run the football. They ran the football. Part of it was Mahomes, believe it or not, taking off and making some plays with his legs. But Isaiah Pacheco for 76 yards, which, oh, by the way, one of my player props was Pacheco 75 yards. So that was one that I actually hit. He had a couple of really big plays, including a touchdown. C.J. Gardner-Johnson got a couple hits on him late in the game in the fourth quarter, but not till after he had gotten yards. The Eagles' vaunted defensive line got handled because most of the tackles had to be at the second level because the offensive line of the Chiefs gave him holes to run through. where was the breakdown, John? Was it the first level, the second level, third level? The Kansas City Chiefs were not supposed to outrun the Philadelphia Eagles coming into this game.
No, well, and that's, no, there's two parts of that. One, that the defense was not good. 158 yards, 6.1 per carry. Now, much like the Eagles rushing attack, it's skewed because Mahomes had some big runs, which was surprising. But Pacheco was really good. And he's probably, example number one when you want to put out and explain to people why Miles Sanders probably isn't going to be back here next year, because that's a 7th round pick playing at that level in the Super Bowl. So the thought process around the league, and by the way, I agree with it for the most part, is you can find running backs and you don't have to pay them significant salaries. And when you got to pay all these other players significant salaries, you got to make hard decisions. And that's why the NFL sort of does business the way they do at that position. But look, the Eagles are a good run defense when they're in their 5-man fronts. And when they're not, they're susceptible of being gashed a little bit. And Jonathan Gannon has told numerous people many times that, we're willing to give up 6 or 7 yards here or there if we can limit the explosive plays and shut down the passing game. So everything works in concert. Nothing was working in concert yesterday, which was the problem. But that's, the one part of the equation. The Eagles' running game, and I'll bring it up again, Kansas City's offensive line is good. I hope people in Philadelphia recognize that now. That's a good offensive line. That's a really good offensive line. That's part of it as well. The Eagles running backs, and Miles got hurt on the first play. But, he got hurt on the first play, which was an inside zone, and he's kicking it outside like he's rookie Miles Sanders. If there's one guy who I said, who didn't look like he handled the big stage well, the big Super Bowl, it'd be Miles Sanders. I didn't know who that was on that did not look like Miles Sanders. He had a poor game. And maybe after that first play, maybe a lot of it had to do with the injury, because he was in the locker room and he didn't talk to us, but he had a wrap around his hands. So I think he's hurt pretty badly. So maybe it's just as simple as his injury. But yeah, Jalen Hurts was a running game. That's it. They had 35 yards rushing. Take Jalen Hurts out. 35 yards rushing with Miles Sanders, Kenny Gainwell, Boston Scott. So Jalen Hurts carried this team offensively. And some of the receivers played great. Devontae, AJ, Dallas, Wes Watkins. They need an upgrade at third receiver. I think we all know that now. Zach Pascal, he's a solid, whatever you want to call him. He does the dirty work, but he's not really all that relevant in the passing game. He had one nice catch, I think went for 9 yards or something.
Right,
but,
and got him a first down. It kind of made up for the bad offensive pass interference penalty.
Yeah, was that? I didn't see that. I guess he was blocking too early.
He was blocking before the ball ever got there.
It
was a righteous call. So he did make the play, and yes, I agree with
you. That's one thing I will say. Kansas City is so brilliant at rub routes and all this kind of stuff. And, for all the accolades we heap on the Eagles coaching staff, and I think it's a very good coaching staff. And as I said, I think Shane Steichen and John are both going to be head coaches in this league within the next week. It's 2 years now, and they have all these issues. Now, part of it is just RPOs. Sometimes, the illegal man downfield stuff. But when you can't run a rub route, can't they get that right at this point?
The Eagles were more penalized than the Kansas City Chiefs, and I do think it was a factor in the ultimate factor, no, but a factor in the game. You're right. The Kansas City Chiefs staff outcoached the Philadelphia Eagles staff. That might be a bitter pill for some to swallow, but it is absolutely the case. Let me ask you a rules question, because you're better at this than I am. I should know it, but I don't, so shame on me. So I'm asking you. Kadarius Toney, who caught the go-ahead touchdown on the fake coming through the line, stop, back the other way, Darius Slay screaming and pointing, and just ended up standing there, and Kansas City takes the lead on the touchdown. And, of course, the big Toney run on the punt return that was a line drive laser by Aaron Sippa. Shame on him.
They went with Brett Kern.
Yeah, Brett Kern was pretty pitiful during his games with the Philadelphia Eagles. So it was the lesser of two evils. Well, we found out it wasn't even the lesser of two evils. It was just an evil. The Chiefs acquired Kadarius Toney for a 6th-round pick and a conditional third-round pick, a compensatory third-round pick that the Chiefs got because Ryan Poles, the assistant general manager in Kansas City, signed with the Chicago Bears. So the Chiefs were granted a compensatory pick because they lost someone from their front office. This offseason, the Eagles lost a whole bunch of guys from their front office, going to other teams all over. There was a month period time, John, where every week we're talking about, the Eagles lost this person, the Eagles lost that person, the Eagles lost Catherine Rice. How come they didn't get any compensatory picks? Was it just the fact that you had to be a general manager, get a general manager's position, that you would actually get a compensatory pick for it? Is that because Kansas City took major advantage of that? Toney was one of the stars of the game.
Yeah, Ryan Poles is GM. The Eagles lost Ian Cunningham and Brandon Brown, who were, it's for minority hirings, spur minority hirings. But they're assistant GMs. They're not GMs. So it's only for GMs.
So shame on them that they couldn't get a GM job. What the hell is wrong with you guys? Why couldn't you get a GM job and get the Eagles a compensatory?
And by the way,
so they could have traded for Kadarius Toney.
I think Ian was a finalist. It might have been Tennessee. It might have been Arizona. It would have been interesting because he's very close to being the GM. He's getting interviews and all that kind of stuff. And when he does become a GM, Chicago's going to get the pick, not the Eagles. So, they got screwed a little bit. Howie said that when he lost him, specifically Brandon Brown, because he lost him to the Giants. So he was even more upset about that. But, it's just, it's goofy rule. And they, but one of the other things about those touchdowns, that plays into it, I should have brought up, Kadarius Toney caught one pass. Sky Moore caught one pass. Like, Andy pulls this stuff out. Like, nobody on the field thinks these knuckleheads are getting the football, and then bang, Andy pulls it out. And they're like, maybe we should have been paying attention to Sky Moore on that play.
And Andy Reid should get credit for it, as should Patrick Mahomes, because he's got to pull the trigger on that. Now, they were I said this last night. I could have gotten the ball to either one of them. And I'm not much of a thrower anymore. When I was 14, I could whip the football. These days, it's not coming off my shoulder like a howitzer, but I could have completed those passes. Those guys were so wide open.
Yeah, it was disappointing all through the season. And, number 2 defense gave up 14 points in the divisional round and NFC championship game. And you're going to have those people as well, Jody. They're going to say, well, they finally played somebody. They made it through 19 games and they finally played somebody. Well, you're going to have that narrative as well.
Which is fine. And when those people start, I'm just going to say, 38-35. Come on.
Yeah, it was a close game. It wasn't like it was a blowout.
That game could have gone either way. A field goal
That's a better,
at
yeah, that's a better argument.
59-52 of the game, and you're going to sit there and go, oh, they finally played somebody and they got beat. They got beat by this much. They lost to the best team in football by this much. They were this close to being the best team in football. So you can stick they didn't play anybody all year long where the sun doesn't shine, because the Super Bowl absolutely could have. Again, this bears repeating. The Eagles could have won the game. I will not say they should have won the game.
No, I don't say they should have won the game. I don't say they should have.
Right.
I say they blew a golden opportunity. Not that they should have won the game. I going into halftime watching Rihanna and doing the JAKIB halftime show in unbelievable volumes, trying to hear Devin Caney and Mark Barzetta. I was pretty confident the Eagles were going to win that game. And then I wasn't as confident when Kansas City went out and went right down the field. I do not think the Eagles handled the extended halftime well. I don't. I mean, they were a completely different team in the first half compared to the second half. And everybody says halftime adjustments. I forget who said it, but I loved when he said it. It might have been Kelsey. No, actually it was Peyton Manning. We go in, we go to the bathroom, we have a couple orange slices, and come back out. The adjustments are going on as the game is going on. Now, you had a little bit more time because of the Super Bowl halftime show. So maybe Andy was able to do some more things, but I just don't think they played well in the second half. I don't think they played well.
And if it's a learning experience, Johnny Mac, as I said
maybe
earlier,
that's the experience. They went through it before.
That's what I was leaning toward, what I said earlier. Yes, they're going to lose guys. The roster that is going to start next year's season, I don't think will be as talented as this year's roster, unless you have guys take unbelievable steps. But A.J. Brown is as good as he is, and Devontae Smith already is as good as he is, and Jalen Hurts finished runner-up for MVP. So I don't know how much more upside there is for some of the key guys, but they're going to need them to take even further steps because they're going to lose guys to free agency. So this roster is going to be probably lesser to start the season than it is to finish the season. But the experience of being in the Super Bowl is something that they may be able to garner from going forward. For next year, we shall see. I see that Paul Domowitch is in our ready room. We're going to punch up Domo next here on Birds 365.
Post-game show with Seth Joyner.
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn.
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney.
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
And Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Post-game, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
Why do millions of people every year from around the world visit Philly's Rocky statue?
You want to tell me the sky is burgundy with green stripes and yellow polka dots? I'll meet you on that. But you're never going to convince me Rocky is anything other than the pure greatness that it is. Never going to happen.
Join me, Paul Farber, for WHYY's The Statue. We're going on a journey to explore the biography of the Rocky statue. Find us wherever you get your podcasts.
crawling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Hi, I'm Jim Muehlbronner, Managing Partner at Del Valle Insurance Group. Give us a call. We're a local, knowledgeable agency, not an 800 number. Go Birds!
It is Birds 365 on a day after an Eagles Super Bowl loss. Hell of a game. One of the most exciting Super Bowls I've ever watched, and I've watched almost every single one of them going back to Super Bowl III. But a Harrison Butker late field goal gives the championship to the Kansas City Chiefs and Andy Reid, which some people here on the stream or the trolls are digging that one in, losing to Andy Reid. I'm okay with losing. If you're going to lose somebody, you might as well lose to Andy Reid. But we're talking about it here on Birds 365. We got Paul Domowitch from JAKIBSports.com, the 33rd team, to chime in and give us his take on the game. And Domo does not usually go with the hat look. What hat you got on today, Domowitch?
Hall of Fame, the Dick Vermeil Hall of Fame hat.
There we go. Yeah, nice. Hall of Famers. 2 Jets, by the way, for Jody. We get Jody.
Go Klecko, Philly guy for you Birds 365 people. Come on, a Philly guy, St. James High School Temple. Philly guy got into the Hall of Fame this weekend.
Yeah, long overdue for Joe Klecko.
Correct.
And Terrell Revis, but we got a game to talk about, Damo.
We do.
What were your first days? I mean, at halftime, I was watching Rihanna in the stadium and saying, "Wow, this team is pretty good." I'll go Larry David, and all of a sudden they come out after the extended halftime, completely different team. What do you think happened?
Well, for one, I mean, I credit Andy Reid with. I mean, he knew going out in the second half he couldn't just lay all this in Mahomes' lap. He knew he had to run the ball, which, I mean, Andy, he hates running the ball. Ran the ball 19 times in the second half. They outrushed the Eagles. I mean, one of the best running teams in the league was outrushed by a team that hates to run, which speaks to the defense.
Yeah.
And that, in my mind it was a huge difference in the game. But, you get down to that last 2 minutes. I still like their chances. I mean, I thought, okay, they're going to stop them, make them settle for a Butker field goal, have a minute and a half left. And, I was confident that they'd be able to take it down the field and at least tie the game and send it into overtime. And then we get the defensive hold.
What did you think of the holding? Now, Bradbury said, I held him. I mean, to me, that ended it. That put a period on it for me. What was your take on it?
I thought it was a little more than ticky-tack, so I think it had to be called. I mean, there are some calls you watch a game and you just think that the officials went way out of the way to put their imprint on a game. I don't think that was the case here. If he doesn't hold him, Juju Smith-Schuster's probably open and they get a touchdown. So, I thought it was a legitimate call.
I don't think the referees decided this game, except for the fact that a couple of these replays, and maybe it was because there were questionable calls in the playoffs that had to do with replays, one specifically with Philadelphia where there was no replay on the Devontae Smith catch, that they were making sure they were going to take a look at every single angle of the 70 cameras that they had there. They had 2 replays that had to take 10 minutes apiece, Damo. Did that have any effect on the game, the momentum back and forth, or was that just due diligence, the NFL doing it the right way?
Yeah, I don't think it had any effect. It was annoying. I think they mentioned at one point 30 different camera angles.
Yeah, I was going to say how many HD cameras they got there? 70.
Yeah, they're going to them all. I mean, I'm convinced that if you have enough cameras and slow-mo enough, there is no ball has ever been caught in the NFL.
Yeah. That's a tough break. You know, that's a game where it's 1 o'clock Sunday. You know, maybe you get away with it.
Yeah, exactly.
But on the Super Bowl, yeah, it's going to be a lot more difficult. But let's talk about the defense, because that's the elephant in the room. I mean, 4 possessions, Damo, in the second half, touchdown. And the only reason they didn't have a 4th touchdown is because Jerick McKinnon was savvy enough to realize, hey, if I get down here, we're going to win this game. They could have had 4 touchdowns. So that's not good. And Nick brought, one of them was the short field because he had the Tony punt return. So you can't blame the defense. Nick also brought up the fumble in the first half. So, even if you want to be nice and take 14 points off the total and not blame it on the defense and say complimentary football, you can't give up touchdown in the second half.
Yeah. Everything is connected to something else in football. They were able to run the ball, I think, partly because, Gannon felt he had to give up something. He thought he could avoid that and not give up some of the key runs they had. But the success they had with the run affected the pass rush, and the pass rush was struggling already. I mean, that was the difference in the game, was the fact that the Chiefs' offensive line won the battle against the Eagles' defensive line, and I didn't think that was possible.
That's a good offensive line.
Yeah,
I'm going to tap myself on the back, Damo, because I said that was the key matchup of the game. Yeah. I said the Eagles' defensive line against the Chiefs' offensive line. Now, I thought the Eagles were going to win that battle, but I was saying all week the Chiefs' offensive line is better than people in Philadelphia think. That's in the conversation for being the second best offensive line. I thought 4 really good players.
Their interior line, I thought, okay, they're probably they may neutralize Hargrave and Cox, but the Eagles still appeared to have an advantage on the edges against their tackles. Orlando Brown, I've never been a big fan of. Andrew Wiley had given up nine sacks this year. Reddick had his moments. He's the one. He tripped up the quarterback early on.
Yeah,
but I mean, that's the battle they won. That's the key battle in this game that was won by the Chiefs and probably ended up deciding this game.
Well, I'll give another one that was won by the Chiefs. Sorry to say, Eagle fans. The Chiefs' offensive line got the better of the defensive line of the Eagles. How about the Eagles' offensive line, which we sing the praises of, the best offensive line, bar none, the drop-off between the Eagles and every other offensive line. They didn't run the ball worth squat yesterday. The best runs that Jalen's had were pass plays where he came out of the pocket afterwards. I guess they're holding their block, so you give him a minimal amount of credit, but it was Jalen just creating. It wasn't designated running plays from Jalen that were the whole fact that he led the team in rushing. Sanders, nothing. Gainwell, nothing. Boston Scott, nothing. This is the offensive line of the National Football League, and the Chiefs' defensive line, which some people question this side of Chris Jones coming in, held their ground against them. What happened to the Eagles' offensive line, Damo?
Well, I mean, they scored 35 points. Hurts,
and they had 417 yards, by the way.
Hurts had 10 rushing touchdowns. I mean, first downs. I'm sorry. A lot of them on quarterback sneaks, but I mean, they couldn't stop that. All they had, it was a 4-down game for the Eagles from the start, which helped. The fact that they had to settle for 2 field goals ended up killing them, along with that defensive hold. This was that both of these teams went in as the second and third ranked red zone offenses in the league. And the Eagles twice had to settle for field goals, and again that ended up being the difference in the game.
Yeah. And I mean, I thought Miles had a bad game. Now, he got hurt on the first play. Maybe it had to do with the injury, but he did not play well. I don't know. You guys probably had a better look than me on the second potential Nick Bolton fumble recovery for a return when he hit Miles Sanders. That looked really close to me. I don't know if it were a catch or it wasn't a catch, but I don't know. Miles just seemed off to me. I think it was more Miles than the offensive line.
Yeah. I mean, early on, from the moment he arrived, the thing that drives me crazy about Miles Sanders is everything's got to go outside.
He kicked it outside. It was like he was a rookie. First play of the game. Inside zone, he's kicking it outside.
And there were some holes a couple of times.
Yeah.
I mean, he had some big creases, and it was like he just passed them by. Yeah, I mean, Miles isn't going to be back. I think that's a kind of a fait accompli.
I think, but to Jody's point, Damo, the way Isaac Pacheco is running, he runs hard. If he was running behind the Eagles' offensive line, I think it would have been completely different. If you were a north-south runner just going downhill, Jody, I don't think you'd be talking about the Eagles' offensive line. I think they played well, as they normally do.
On the list of things to do in the offseason for the Eagles, obviously they've got a ton of dilemmas with their free agents. I mean, they've got 19 unrestricted free agents. But they've got one thing they've got to go out and get is a downhill running back. I mean, I love Kenny Gainwell, and he's going to be a big factor in this offense going forward. But he's not the slasher, the power guy that they need that kind of guy to complement him. And I think that'll be high on their list of offseason people they got to get.
They have a downhill running back. Unfortunately, he also needs to play quarterback, and he has more important responsibilities. But he's a hell of a downfield running back.
There you go.
And oh, by the way, that play to Miles Sanders, you talk about cutting edge. He had the ball. He took 2 steps. He didn't make a quote unquote football move. If he had, that's a fumble. And oh, by the way, Nick Bolton was the unquestioned best linebacker on the field. I know we like the Eagle linebackers, TJ Edwards, Kaiser White. Nick Bolton
he played
easily the best linebacker on the field yesterday.
Yeah.
All right, Damo, I liked what the Eagles said after the game. It was painful. I know Eagle fans are in mourning this morning. They had the chance to win the game. Won't say they should have won the game, but they sure as hell could have won the game. But I like the fact that Sirianni said, hey, we're not going to blame one call. We lost the game over the entire length of the game. They are that good. Gave credit to his opponent. Jalen said after the game, yes, you grow from pain, and this will be something that we'll use as a learning experience to become better with. I even like the fact that Bradbury admitted he held on the play. I thought they handled their business after the game real well. Can you take any solace from that if you're an Eagle fan?
Yeah, well, you can be. You know what? I listened to Jalen. Jalen will never fumble again in the rest of his career. He is going to. I mean, he goes into the offseason with this is what I'm going to improve at, and that's going to be. I mean, he didn't fumble that much in his career, but that one was. That one he's going to take that one hard. And I tell you what, I mean, nobody's going to ever get a ball out of his hands again in the near future.
But you're probably right. I mean, Jalen's going to go into the offseason with that mentality, and he doesn't fumble it anyway. Typically, I think that was his third fumble of the year. But the opportunity here, Jody and I have been talking about it. Like I still think this is the best Eagles team of the modern era. They're never going to be regarded as that because they didn't win the Super Bowl. Right. But I still think they're the best team. And moving forward, you mentioned those free agents. It looks like Shane Steichen's going to be the coach in Indianapolis. Jonathan Gannett's going to be the coach in Arizona. They're probably going to take at least one assistant with them. So you're going to have significant movement on the coaching staff. This opportunity, Damo, man, It's tough to imagine another season like this one. And that to me is more disappointing than the actual loss that they didn't take advantage of the opportunity, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think this is going to be a team that just, is going to crash and burn after getting
No,
one
I
chance.
don't. Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, they're going to have some difficult decisions to make. The chemistry is going to be different next year, particularly on defense. You just don't know what the effect's going to be. You cannot, when you get an opportunity like this, you can't afford to squander it because you might not get another opportunity. I think they will, but Kansas City ain't going away. And somebody asked, it was funny after the game, somebody asked Andy, Andy, there's been these retirement rumors. And he looked at Mahomes and said, I think I'm going to stick around for a while. I mean, Mahomes is only going to get better. It's like somebody said the week before the game, the Chiefs had the best player, the Eagles had the best team. Last night, the best player won.
By the way, was he the best player on the field yesterday? Because I think Jalen Hurts was the best player on the field yesterday.
I mean, in a single, you're talking about last night's performance because of the angle and everything.
Last night.
Right. Jalen,
not overall.
He came. The fumble notwithstanding, I mean, he played a huge game. I mean,
he was unbelievable.
Yeah,
some of those tight window throws to Dallas Goedert. People are talking about the downfield stuff. Trent McDuffie was in a position to make a play on that AJ touch. He just lost the ball.
Yeah.
He didn't target it well, but some of those intermediate throws to Dallas Goedert, they were tight window throws. And then the running aspect, Super Bowl record, 3 touchdowns, ties the Super Bowl. And the 2-point conversion, he just carried the team when they're down 35-27. Yeah. If the Eagles find a way to win that game, I told Jody, that drive would go down in Eagles lore when they're down 35-20. Now it's a footnote. He played a great game, Jalen Hurts.
He did. And I mean, like I said, 10 rushing first downs by a quarterback. This is going to be a part of his game forever. I mean, the people that think he's going to stop, not going to run because it's going to shorten his career. I mean, he knows how to protect himself. He's a fullback, essentially, in a quarterback, a quarterback in a fullback's body. And it's just such an important part of his game. It's going to continue. There are things he needs to improve at from a passing standpoint. One thing you saw Kansas City do yesterday was when they flushed him, it was always to the left. He still is not, that's not his strength. He got better at it this year. Last night, he was not able to turn his body to make those throws. Most of them he just threw away to avoid a sack. But I think he needs to learn how to step up in the pocket more and throw that way rather than always take it outside. But he's going to keep getting better. I don't think, he's a long way from his ceiling. And that's good news for the Eagles.
Very good news if that's the case. Sirianni did say last night in his post-game press conference that it was a question about handing out blame, and he wisely said, well, we need to look at the tape, which means he knows that they had an issue, but doesn't want to talk about it just yet. So when in doubt, we got to look at the tape first. You don't usually have to when you lose a game in the Super Bowl because you got months before you're going to play another game. But I would start breaking down that game film immediately because Dallas Goedert is a phenomenal tight end and a talented player. Kelsey had 81 yards, Goddard had 80. So it was that close. And the way that they get Kelsey as open as they do is a thing of beauty. If I heard it once over the weekend, I heard it 10 times, the same question I've been asking for a month. Not how does Kelsey get open? How the hell does he get so friggin' wide open? Not only open, but nobody else in the picture. Everyone on the planet knows they're throwing the ball to when he's wide open. Can the Eagles learn from that? Can Dallas Goedert be the Kelsey of the NFC?
Absolutely. Goddard's a tremendous player already. And I think he's going to keep getting better, and his chemistry with Hurts is going to keep getting better. I think he needs to become a bigger red zone weapon, although in the red zone, the pass is secondary for the Eagles, or at least it was this season. I mean, they run the ball inside the 20, but I also think you're going to see more of, last night for the first time in a while, you saw Jalen be willing to look to Gainwell when he was under pressure and get the ball outside to him. Now, Kansas City did a good job of limiting the yards after the catch to Gainwell when he caught the ball in the flat. But I think that's another aspect of their passing game. They need to become a bigger factor. But it's funny when Andy was here, the only thing people focused on was his game management. Oh, he's stupid. He doesn't know how to manage the clock. You saw yesterday, this guy is one of the great schemers in the history of.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney. I'm like, we're saying, how did they get so wide open? That I brought up with Jody. I'm like, who thinks Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney are getting the football in that situation? Number one, you guys are probably all right. I'm gonna jump all over Travis Kelce. That was one of them. Yeah. There's like three guys jumping Travis Kelce.
Yeah, with that motion with Sky Moore. When he's motioning across, like he's coming across the formation, Avonte Maddox just got completely suckered because he was supposed to be on him. He comes inside, and then once he comes inside, he starts playing the run. In the meanwhile, Sky Moore is reversing it and motioning left, and he's like nobody within 10 yards of him. And the same thing with Kelce. I mean, the thing I keep wondering is why don't you hit him at the line? Now I realize they put him in motion a lot. They move him off the line. They find ways to make it difficult to do that. But in my mind, that's the only way to slow him down. It is to delay him getting into his route, because once he does, he's got you. But nobody does that. As the Eagles certainly didn't do it yesterday.
But I mean, the Eagles' offense, it's a little bit give and take, right? Because the Eagles' offense is, it's RPO based, so they don't run a lot of motion. They don't do a lot of these tricks that Andy does. Like Andy was 29-3 now with a bye week. I mean, Andy's ready. That's what I said. You knew Kansas City was going to be prepared, and he's got all this motion. He's got all these alignments down pat, but he runs a different offense. I mean, the Eagles' offense is darn successful, but it's pretty simple because it's an RPO offense. All the bells and whistles are not part of that offense. So how do you mesh those two?
Yeah, good question. But they'll find ways to make Goddard more of a factor. Although this is, their passing game is going to be a wide receiver based passing game. That's why they got A.J. Brown. That's why they're paying him $100 million. That's why Devontae Smith's next contract is going to be in that same range. So, Goddard is such a valuable weapon when they do shut down those wide receivers or find a way to take them out on third down plays. So that's the challenge for Nick and probably his next offensive coordinator, Brian Johnson.
Hi, Damo. Yeah, you got Brian Johnson as the new offensive coordinator because Shane Steichen's going to be the head coach of the Colts. John's got Jonathan Gannon getting the gig in Arizona. I'm not sure after last night's second half defensive performance. Where will Michael Clay be the assistant special teams coach next year?
Oh.
I think he's going to be a casualty here. Yeah. I mean,
maybe, who knows? You need everybody needs a scapegoat. If Jeffrey's proven
why do you think I brought up Johnny Mac? This is a Jeff Lurie special. Somebody's got to pay, and his name is Michael Clay.
Yeah.
In his defense, punt return has not been a problem this year. I think their longest punt return before last night was 20 yards that they gave up. I mean, their problem was they couldn't, their returns, but punt coverage seemed to be one.
By the way, was awesome.
Yeah,
Britton Covey was
really
awesome.
Good return. Yep.
Yeah.
it's funny when I'm watching that play on TV, the return by Tony, when he reversed field. You're watching. You're saying there's got to be somebody over there, right? There's got to be somebody over there. Then all of a sudden, the only person over there is the punter. But it was a line drive.
You could see it because we were in the end zone with you could see it develop. They had the wall. I mean, it was set up perfectly. And we were talking all year at some point it was going to hurt the Eagles, and it did. It came in the Super Bowl. It came late, but you know what? They were able to recover, and they went down 35-7. They came back to tie it though. So I can't give Jody's right though. Jeffrey Lurie has this history of I don't know if he can scapegoat somebody when he goes to the Super Bowl, but I guess he can. I mean, I don't blame Michael Clay as much as I blame. There's not much you can blame. Here's what there's not much you can blame Howie on. Great roster, executive of the year, deservedly so.
All right, let me jump in here. Should Howie Roseman have gotten them a better third wide receiver? Because as you mentioned, Sky Moore out of nowhere.
That's part of it. That's part of it. But before I'll add that to it, I was saying the Chris Maragoses of the world, the Brian Bremans of the world, even they don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Like they used to get that one or two guys who were special teams players. They don't do that anymore. I can't blame that on Michael Clay.
Well, I mean,
but to Jody's point as well, third receiver as well.
Well, I don't think
that Howie was great, but
that punt return, the man I blame is Cypus.
It was a bad punt too.
It was a low line drive.
They got two bad punters.
You want to talk about a move that they're going to forever regret? It's when they didn't re-sign Cam Johnston.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody pays attention to punters that come and go, but I thought he was going to be
punters on the 53, and neither can punt.
Around.
Yeah, Jody brought up Quez Watkins. Quez was another guy. I mean, I think it's kind of comical at this point. I mean, that's what you do. But in back in the spring last year, the Eagles were talking up. Oh, we think Quez Watkins can be a number 2 receiver. We think Kerry Vincent and Tay Gowan could be number 2 quarterbacks. They're going to fight for it. Yeah. And, never listen to what they say, watch what they do. They made it very clear they needed to be better at receiver. Long before they got A.J. Brown, they went after Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk and Allen Robinson. They wanted a wide receiver. They got a great one. They need a third wide receiver, though. They play so much 11. They need a better third wide receiver, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, you saw yesterday. I haven't seen the final snap numbers, but every time I looked, it was or at least in the first half, Pascal was out there and not Watkins because he's a better run blocker. Watkins just doesn't fit this offense. They need a guy that can block. They need a bigger body, a sturdier body, because that third wide receiver does so much running with in their offense, or so much blocking. I think maybe they think they can get by when they go with empty sets. It's Gainwell that's out wide. Maybe they feel that kind of offsets, any limitations by Watkins. I don't know, but yeah, it's another position that they'll probably, you've seen a few mentions of them drafting a wide receiver. It's not going to be in the first round, but I think I could see them taking one, day 2.
Believe it or not, Quez played twice as many snaps as Pascal did. That's something they need to address.
Yeah. I think most of them were in the second half, though. They used a lot more 12 in the first half. I'll tell you a guy that just you didn't see, and you didn't see him much the whole year. Jordan Davis. I expected more from him. I watched.
I'll be back. So yeah, It's his
Yeah,
job.
he's going to have to play a bigger role. Obviously, well, you drafted him, you moved up and drafted him for a big reason, but he needs to become more of a down in, down out factor than he's been as a rookie.
Agreed. All right, Domo, last thing for me. John and I debated this earlier. This year's team as compared to the Super Bowl winning team from 2 years ago. Can you say this year's team was better than that team after having lost the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think you can. I mean, this is the best. This was the best team in football. It just did not play well enough last night to win the game. I mean, I felt the 2017 team, even though it won 13 games, I mean, without Wentz, basically caught lightning in a bottle in the playoffs. I mean, Nick Foles never played like that again in his life. And if he didn't in those 3 playoff games, they don't.
I would say too. He didn't play that well against Atlanta. People forget, but then it was just lights out against Minnesota and New England. Lights out.
Yeah. And if Julio Jones is it Julio Jones that ball?
Yeah.
If he keeps that ball,
got his hand on the ball in the end zone.
Keanu O'Neal, if he makes the interception, in the second quarter,
that's the beauty of football. I mean, a hand on a jersey last night was the difference in the game. I mean, I'm sure it's going to kill Eagle fans all season long to think about that.
That's how close. That's what I'm the same as you. I think this is the better team.
Yeah.
And I'm like, sometimes the better team doesn't win. I mean, it happens all the time. I always go back to the 16-0 Patriots. The Patriots won all that time, and their best team didn't win. Their best team they ever had didn't win. That was better than every single Super Bowl team they had, and they didn't win.
Yeah, and I'm a guy who believes you got to finish a deal. The last game, it just does ratchet in importance every single game, and when you lose the last one, you can't look back and go, but. You writer guys stick together, us radio guys, YouTube guys look at things differently. Domo, great stuff today. Thanks for getting up with us. We're going to tap into you all off season. Did a great job on JAKIB Sports all year long. We'll read you on 33rd Team as well. Go ahead, take a deep breath and take a couple weeks off. We'll get you back on in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Have a good trip back, John.
Thanks, Tom.
Paul Domowitch, 33rd Team, and JAKIBSports.com contributes to our website here as well. John McMullen, Jody McDonald, the Mac guys, we got to come back. Sorry to say, not only a bow on the show, but a bow on the season. But we got the whole offseason to talk about here on Birds 365.
Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
Philadelphia fans, we're cut from a different cloth. Born into a brotherhood and bonded to our team for life. We believe anything is possible because we've witnessed the impossible. While we may be from different neighborhoods, come Sunday, we are one, and we will be heard. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer 3 major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Why do millions of people every year from around the world visit Philly's Rocky statue?
You want to tell me the sky is burgundy with green stripes and yellow polka dots? I'll meet you on that. But you're never going to convince me Rocky is anything other than the pure greatness that it is. Never going to happen.
Join me, Paul Farber, for WHYY's The Statue. We're going on a journey to explore the biography of the Rocky statue. Find us wherever you get your podcast.
post-game show with Seth Joyner.
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn.
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney.
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
And Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Post-game, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
Yes, it's a little painful, but we appreciate everybody who streamed in today after yesterday's 38-35 Super Bowl loss by the Eagles. Phenomenal game, one of the most exciting Super Bowls I've ever seen. And at the end of 60 minutes, the Chiefs just finished 3 points ahead. You're going to have to live with it.
How many people did we have listening today, Jody? I'm interested. I can't see out of town.
Five and change. Some good numbers, not as good as we had last week leading up to the game.
Numbers, yeah, I was just curious to see if
good solid numbers. People didn't go into hiding. No, a lot of the good streamers who are here and dedicated were here for both the upside and the downside. Johnny Mac, what's your upside look like when you getting out of Arizona, when you get back to the East Coast?
I am on the red eye tonight from Philadelphia to Detroit. Then I'm coming from Detroit.
Philadelphia
from
to
Phoenix to Detroit.
Yeah.
And then Detroit to Philadelphia. I will be getting in at 9 a.m. supposedly.
Oh.
So right in the middle of Birds 365. So I'm out of the mix tomorrow. And that's if everything goes well.
Matty Verderam is going to join us tomorrow. We'll work on getting an Eagle guy. Anybody get out of Dodge early today? We knew last week that the Eagles would be sticking around and doing post-game stuff if they won, so they didn't. So I assume they're getting out pretty damn early. Some of your brethren getting out early too?
Most are getting out late tonight, like me, or Tuesday morning for that reason. If they had the if they would have won, like Kansas City, Andy and Patrick Mahomes are having a press conference as this show is going on. So, well, it's actually at 8:00, so really early in the morning. But it would have been the Eagles, but they did not win the football game.
Right. All right. If you can round up any of your boys who are on the late night flight back through Detroit to Philadelphia for later in the week, do so. You have a safe trip back tomorrow. I'll be here. I don't know if it's going to be me and Tone or me and Barrett, or who's going to be doing the show. John's in transit tomorrow. He'll be back on Wednesday. And yes, the offseason starts, and we'll start down.
Yeah, Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni going to talk later this week, Wednesday or Thursday. Clean out day. Locker room is supposed to be tomorrow, Tuesday at some point. So I don't know if I'll be back for it, but plenty of stuff going on. It never stops. That's why it's Birds 365, Jody.
Exactly. We just go from in-season to off-season.
Howie season.
Howie's got his work cut out for him this offseason.
Yeah,
Howie did a phenomenal job this season, and unfortunately they couldn't cash that ticket. Came up just short. Oh, Howie's got to go right back to work. He's got a busy offseason, and we'll be talking about it. Johnny Mac, safe flight. Appreciate everybody tuning in with us here on Birds 365.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate, inside the locker room, and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.